The night was almost too quiet. A dusty back road stretched into the distance, the last blush of twilight bleeding out of the sky. Crickets buzzed somewhere in the grass, and a lone man knelt by the roadside, checking the trembling frame of a stray dog. Its fur was patchy, ribs jutting out sharply under the skin. It should have been too weak to move. And yet, before the man could react, the dog lunged forward, its teeth catching the fabric of his shirt. He stumbled, caught off guard. "Hey, hey, easy," he muttered, trying to calm it. But the dog didn't stop. It tugged harder, almost pulling him off his knees. Its eyes were wide, pupils dilated with something more than fear. Then came the bark, sharp, desperate, unlike anything he'd heard all day. And suddenly he realized this wasn't random. This wasn't panic, it was a plea. The dog yanked again, dragging him toward the shadowy forest path at the edge of the road. His pulse quickened. He glanced toward the dark line of trees, hesitating, and then let the dog lead. Whatever was waiting there, it clearly couldn't wait. The road ended at the mouth of a dirt trail, where the air smelled of wet soil and rotting leaves. A recent storm had left puddles everywhere, reflecting the last light of sunset like shards of broken glass. The man, a volunteer rescuer, had been in this area for weeks. Floods had forced dozens of strays into the open, their shelters destroyed, their packs scattered. He had seen dogs starving, injured, limping, but none like this one. Its body quivered as though electric, its ears pinned flat, tail low, yet its focus never wavered from the trees. Every few steps it would look back at him, pulling insistently, as though afraid he might turn back. He swallowed hard, flashlight in one hand, following. He had seen desperate dogs before, but never one that seemed to be begging him to come somewhere. The deeper they went, the quieter the forest became. Even the crickets stopped chirping. Something was waiting for him in that darkness. Minutes passed, his boots squelching in the wet earth. Branches clawed at his shirt. The dog pressed forward, whining, glancing over its shoulder to make sure he kept up. Then he heard it. At first it was so soft he thought it was just water dripping somewhere. But then it came again, a thin, reedy cry that sent a shiver down his spine. Not a bark, not a howl, something smaller. His pace quickened, heart pounding. The dog bolted ahead, forcing him to jog to keep up. The undergrowth tore at his legs, roots snagged his boots, but he kept going until suddenly the forest opened up into a small clearing, and there he saw them. 3 tiny shapes lay in a shallow ditch, their fur soaked and matted, their bodies barely moving. They were so small they looked like they had just been born. Puppies. Their thin cries pierced the night, but they were weakening fast. In that moment, everything clicked. The dog hadn't been running for help for herself. She had brought him here to save them. The man dropped to his knees in the mud, reaching into the ditch. The first puppy was ice cold to the touch, its tiny chest barely rising and falling. He quickly scooped it up, then grabbed the second and third, cradling them against his chest to share his body heat. The mother dog circled the ditch, whining frantically, then nudging his arm as though telling him to hurry. He looked around. There was no time to lose. The night air was dropping fast, his breath now visible in the beam of his flashlight. These puppies wouldn't survive much longer in the open. Not like this. But there was a problem. His car was parked far back near the road. There was no quick way out. He would have to carry them himself. And the forest around him was growing darker with every passing minute. Somewhere far off, a jackal howled. He took a deep breath, tucking the puppies inside his jacket, zipping it up carefully so they wouldn't slip. Then he turned back toward the trail. He had to get them out. And he had to do it now. He stumbled through the trees, one arm wrapped tightly around the squirming bundle under his jacket. His other hand gripped the flashlight. The beam flickered. "No, no, no," he muttered under his breath, tapping the light until it steadied. But each flicker made the shadows seem deeper, closer. The mother dog trotted just ahead, glancing back constantly. She stayed close, guiding him as though she knew the safest path. He could hear the puppy's faint whimpers against his chest, and it drove him to move faster. Then, a snap. He froze. Something had moved in the darkness ahead. 2 glowing eyes appeared just beyond the reach of his light. He felt the hair rise on the back of his neck. The dog growled low, stepping in front of him, her body tense. She barked once, twice, louder each time. For a terrifying moment, nothing moved. The glowing eyes blinked, then shifted. A shape melted back into the trees, silent as smoke. He exhaled sharply, adrenaline flooding his system. There was no going back now. He had to keep moving. Every step felt longer, heavier. His arms ached, his legs burned. But he pushed on. Every second mattered, and every second felt longer than the last. The forest finally began to thin, and a faint light glowed in the distance. The village. He whistled, sharp and loud. Almost instantly, figures appeared at the edge of the road. Neighbors, curious about the noise. They rushed toward him as soon as they saw what he was carrying. Blankets appeared, a basket was fetched. Someone shouted for warm water. Inside a nearby hut, the puppies were dried one by one, their frail bodies wrapped and placed by the fire. The mother dog stayed by the doorway, pacing, until one of the puppies let out a louder cry. For the first time all night, her trembling stopped. The rescuer mixed warm milk, carefully feeding each puppy drop by drop with a syringe. Hours passed. The fire burned low. Then a sound. The first puppy gave a weak whimper, then another. Its tail twitched. The man felt relief wash over him like a wave. One by one, the puppies began to stir, their tiny voices growing stronger. The mother dog climbed into the basket, curling her body protectively around them, licking each one as though counting them. They were alive, and against all odds, they were going to stay that way. Over the next several days, the man visited the hut daily. Each time, the puppies looked stronger, their fur fluffier, their cries louder. The mother dog no longer cowered when he entered. She let him stroke her head now, her once wild eyes shining with something almost like gratitude. Plans were made to find them a safe foster home where they would never face nights like that again. They had been born into a storm, but now they would grow up under a roof. This dog had risked everything, not for food, not for shelter, but for her family. She had no words, no way to explain what she needed, but she found a way to ask for help. And because someone listened, 4 lives were saved that night. Would you have followed her into the darkness? He did, and it saved them all. Just when everything seems peaceful, a sudden storm rolls in. Rain lashes the earth, turning the paths to mud. The man rushes to check on the family, finding the puppies huddled under a broken shelter. The mother dog barks anxiously, pacing back and forth. The man scrambles to repair the shelter with whatever he can find. Palm leaves, old planks, even his own raincoat, until the little den is dry again. Narration. Nature had tested them once before. This time they faced it together. Word spreads through the village of the rescue and survival of the little family. Children bring scraps of food, elders smile as they pass by, and soon the once sickly dog is the heart of the community. Visual. Kids sitting in a circle as the puppies play. Laughter filling the air. Emotional note. In saving her puppies, he hadn't just rescued a family. He had brought joy back to an entire village. The man decides to give the mother dog a name, one that means survivor in the local language. Her story becomes a lesson shared with others about kindness, courage, and trust between humans and animals. Visitors from nearby towns begin to come just to see her and her healthy pups. Narration. She had gone from a desperate stray to a living reminder that even the smallest act of compassion can change everything. Eventually, the man must leave for another rescue mission. The night before he goes, he sits by the fire one last time with the dog and her now-grown pups. She lies quietly beside him, her head resting on his lap. He whispers a promise to return. Visual. The sun rising as he walks down the path, the dog watching from the edge of the clearing, tail wagging slowly as though saying thank you. Final narration swells with emotional gravity. She had no words, no way to beg for help, yet she found someone who listened. In the end, it wasn't just 4 lives that were saved. It was proof that compassion can reach across species, across fear, across darkness itself. The last shot lingers on the forest path, now bathed in golden light. The camera pans to the sky, leaving the viewer with a feeling of hope, awe, and quiet triumph. As the puppies tumbled playfully in the dirt days later, the rescuer finally let himself smile, a tired, relieved smile that said more than words ever could. The night was over, and a new life had begun. Days pass, and the man becomes part of the little family's routine. Each morning he brings food and fresh water, sitting quietly as the puppies eat. At first, the mother dog keeps her distance, watching from the edge of the clearing, but slowly her tail begins to wag when he arrives. One day, one of the puppies totters toward him, climbing clumsily onto his lap. The mother no longer growls. Instead, she licks his hand. Narration. What began as a desperate plea for help had turned into trust. But the savannah is never safe for long. One night, the sound of distant howls jolts the village awake. The man rushes out to find the dog standing at the edge of the path, fur bristling, guarding her pups. Moonlight reveals a pair of jackals circling the edge of the huts. The man grabs a stick and flashlight, shouting and waving to drive them back. Visual, dust flying as the jackals dart away, their glowing eyes lingering for a moment before vanishing into the darkness. The danger may be gone, but the reminder is clear. Survival is fragile here. The next morning, the man notices the mother dog limping, a small cut on her paw, likely from the chase. He kneels, speaking softly, waiting until she edges closer. Slowly, carefully, he cleans and wraps the wound. Cinematic close-up, her tense muscles slowly relax, her eyes softening as if she understands this is kindness, not harm. The puppies crawl over his legs, playfully nipping at his hands, and for the first time, the man laughs. Narration. She had trusted him with her babies. Now she trusted him with herself. Weeks later, the puppies are strong, playful, and bold. The man faces a choice: leave them in the wild where they were found, or bring them closer to human care. One evening, he sits by the fire, watching the puppies tumble in the dirt, while the mother lies beside him. Close up, her head rests against his knee, as though she's telling him she is ready. The villagers nod in agreement. The little family will stay close to the settlement, where danger is fewer and food is plenty. Time jump. The puppies are grown now, healthy and full of life, chasing each other under the rising sun. The man walks down the same forest path where it all began, but this time the dog is by his side, no longer desperate, no longer afraid. He pauses at the ditch where he first found them, now filled with grass and flowers. Narration. This is where she begged for help. This is where everything changed. Final shot. The dog and her nearly grown pups sitting proudly beside him, looking toward the horizon. A symbol of survival, trust, and a bond that turns strangers into family.